I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to In Therapy, where we follow real people on their therapeutic journeys. In this week's episode, we're going to be exploring the most important relationship in our lives, our relationship with ourselves. Stay tuned till the end for my top tip on how to cultivate a deeper and more supportive relationship with yourself. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, click the bell icon to receive notifications as new episodes are released, and do follow my Instagram at Alex Howard Therapy for daily inspiration and support. Katie, it's lovely to see you. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah,
you look good.
I know. Yeah, I'm feeling okay now.
Yeah.
I had a really rough 3 or 4 days.
What happened?
And that's the $60 million question, isn't it? I don't know what happened. I think I got a bit overwhelmed with all the kids coming home, and it was mainly that, to be honest, and the mess and the demands suddenly from going from quite, the noise.
What was the result of all of that? How did it impact you?
I feel myself getting like the stress levels building and then I think I tap into these beliefs that I'm not important, nobody cares about me, I'm disrespected. And then it kind of becomes a bit of a vicious circle, and I feel like that whole belief, like I'm not being heard, my voice isn't important. And so we had a massive blowout.
Who's the we?
Well,
you don't have to say names, but you mean you and
all of us, really.
Okay.
Out of context, it sounds very trivial, but you know how hard I'm working at the moment, and I'm literally from Monday to Friday, I'm full pelt and I don't stop. And so I came down one morning, and the kitchen looked like a hovel.
Like a bomb had gone off.
Literally. It was horrible. I had to walk through grated cheese and lettuce and God knows what in the floor, and the whole place just looked disgusting. So I sent a message to the WhatsApp saying, you've all lost half your pocket money, and unless the kitchen and the downstairs is spotless by 11 a.m, you'll lose the rest. And
was it?
It was, yeah. But not without a load of abuse and you're mad and why are you so triggered and why do you keep losing the plot? Not just from the kids. And it just escalated. So we had a few days where I just felt terrible, like an emotional hangover almost.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where it was like screaming, a screaming match, which I hate, and it doesn't happen very often now, but it did. And then I just did I used my tools. I did the stop process, because my brain then goes to all the horrible things that have happened in the past, all the horrible things they've done in the past. Right, that's it, I'm definitely getting a divorce, I'm moving to Costa Rica, I'm not working anymore, you can all fuck off, basically. That's
so there wasn't any extreme pendulum swing happening there at all?
But that worries me then, and then I worry that I'm like mental, because I get those extreme swings.
Here's the thing: you need to set things up, both in your inner world, in how you relate to yourself, how you use your tools, how you manage your triggers, and in the external world, in the relationships, in a way that is ultimately supporting you when you're under periods of significant stress.
But I've tried in the external world to set things up, and nobody complies, basically.
Well, but I think part of that is the ways you've gone about it haven't always been as effective as other ways that you could approach it. For example, being consistent, having you and Simon as a unified voice. There are certain pieces there.
That'll never happen.
Well,
I've accepted that.
We don't know that. We don't know that. How much have you brought that to the couples therapy you're doing?
Well, the problem is the couples therapy that we're doing is all very much about, like what you say, it's about the only reason I get triggered is because of something I believe about myself. And if I can be strong in myself, then that it wouldn't, which I did do.
Yeah, but see how I look at it is there's your stuff, there's Simon's stuff, and there's the relationship stuff. And it's actually three things.
Yeah.
So you can't work on the relationship just by you working on your stuff and him working on his stuff.
I know, well, that's what
you
I
have
think,
to work on the stuff you do together. Like that's its own living entity.
So that's not really covered in the. Well, we have had couples therapy before where we've brought that stuff, and it did come up there about, you know, Simon's passive parenting style and my assertive parenting style, but that can quickly go into aggressive.
But the trouble is, the more passive he is, the more assertive you're going to get.
Yeah, I know. Or the more aggressive.
You're counterbalancing, right?
And I don't feel it's fair. I feel like I've got all the responsibility on my shoulders all the time.
I mean, I'm going to be blunt with you, Casey. You decided last year to leave the relationship, and that took a lot of courage and a lot of guts to do that. You've now made the decision to have a go at making the relationship work, which I support. I think it's right to give it that chance. But if you don't resolve or at least improve some of these issues, my money is on this relationship not lasting.
And mine is too.
Right? And it's an act of love to you, to Simon, and to the kids that you make working these issues a priority. Yeah. And if the couples therapist you're working with can't, there are plenty out there that can. Because things like backing each other and having a unified front with the kids is 101 parenting, but it's also 101 relationship stuff, because you know how it feels when you don't. You feel unloved, unseen, violated, angry, pissed off, alone, like a whole bunch of horrible emotions. And even when you have parents that don't agree and they're working it out, there still needs to, as much as possible, be a unified front in front of the children. Yeah. There's a price to being in a relationship, in my opinion. And that price is that each party has to be willing to show up to the relationship and respect, not just be loving, but also be respectful of the other person. And that means, you know, and different relationships balance in different ways. You know, there are relationships where both work and both contribute financially, others where one works, one doesn't, but they hopefully contribute in other ways. But there has to be a balance of both parties contributing what they can to a relationship, unless there's, you know, genuine reason, like someone's got serious chronic illness and that just means they're on. But for relationships to work, you have to feel like you're on a team.
And I don't. I've never felt like I'm on a team, and I still don't.
Right. My feeling is until you work that out together, or decide that you simply cannot work that out together, well, you then have a decision to make.
I think the decision's made, Alex. I think the decision's made. I'm just, you know, sort of riding out my time, basically. But until there's a more convenient time to sort everything out. You know, I feel all right saying that now. You know, I feel quite calm. There is, you know, even since we've, you know, said we'll try again.
I suppose the question in my mind, Katie, is what does trying again actually mean? Because if trying again means we're just going to do what we did before and try a little bit harder, you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got. To me, trying again means we're going to go, why didn't this work before? Why was there unhappiness? Why was there frustration? What were those issues? And can we fix them or can we not fix them? And if we can fix them, what does that look like? How are we going to fix them? Because if you don't, to put it bluntly, grab the bull by the horns and deal with that, the same issues, and the danger of what happens is when people don't like the feeling of being alone, they do just enough to get things back together.
I'm quite happy to be alone.
No, I understand. But what you need to know is Simon's change because there's deep change happening that's in progress and it needs more time, or is it a bit more effort in the short term to get it good enough that you're willing to put up with it? Because relationships are hard fucking work. Like long-term happy relationships. The people that I know that have been together multiple decades and are basically still in love and happy. And of course they had good years and bad years. I mean, but in those instances, in every single case, they've worked at the relationship. Doesn't mean they haven't necessarily gone to therapy. Some people wouldn't go near a therapist's office, but there's a fundamental respect and effort and willingness that's there. If you don't have that, you don't have the glue that holds a relationship together.
Well, we don't have the glue. We don't. And
so that's the conversation you have to have.
Yeah, we've had it. I've said this is what I'm not happy with. He said this is what he's not happy with. And I think we're so far apart. At the moment, I can tolerate, because I'm doing so much work on myself and I'm so busy and, we're not sleeping in the same room, so I can cope with all that at the moment, with everything going on. And anyway, so that's happened. And yeah, so I am quite resigned when I'm feeling like I am at the moment.
But resigned, to me, is a bit of a victim state. It's a state of, well, I can't change it.
No, I don't agree, because I'm resigned at the moment because I'm still in a position where I'm doing a lot of work on myself, and I'm not necessarily ready to, for example, I can't imagine ever having a relationship with anybody else at this stage, but because of my own self-esteem issues and all that. So, not that that's really on the cards. But if, it's really hard to explain, but at the moment, we've got a financial commitment in the house, we've got the kids are there on and off, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I hear that.
And to try and now negotiate a financial settlement and move house and do all that, I feel that. I cannot take that on at the moment.
So let me ask you a question. 3 to 5 years' time, where do you want to be?
And I think that's what I struggle with, because I think I've only literally just learnt to find out who I am. So my dream has always been, I'll live in the countryside in a lovely big pile with dogs and chickens but I think that's an unrealistic dream, and I'm not sure I do want that. I think that's what I've always sort of craved this peace, but I know the external isn't going to bring me that peace.
But what you're saying is you want a level of peace. You don't need to live in a big country pile to have peace. It might actually be really fucking noisy. The windows rattling in the wind because you can live in the house or whatever. But what you're saying is you want a level of peace and space.
I want peace.
Which you don't experience when you've got turmoil in relationship and teenage kids making a lot of noise at home. Yeah. So one thing you want is peace.
It's peace, and I want to be. I want to be in a relationship where I'm loved and respected for who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it feels like to me. That's what it feels like. That feels to me like what your heart is longing for.
It is. But I've got there's so many other aspects to that, because I don't think anybody would look at me or touch me, go near me with a barge pole because of my own self-image issues. I've put on, I'm 3 stone heavier than I was when I got married. I'm not exactly a looker.
But do you think how someone looks physically is the most important thing in them being loved and adored?
I don't think it helps.
How much do you think it helps? Quite honestly. Because I know a lot of people that are beautiful that are really fucking unhappy. And I know a lot of people which are not necessarily ugly, but their aesthetics is not the most important thing in their life, that have a great deal of love.
Yeah. And that's where, I have a problem, I suppose, because I've always had this ideal perfectionist, and kind of outlook, and I probably put too much.
Because I think we spoke a few sessions ago about this idealized self, like this person that you believe you need to be loved and to be
Yeah.
successful. And that idealized self, for most of us, is an impossible image that we can never really achieve. The truth is, what you want is you want to feel loved, and you want to feel respected, and you want to feel valued, and you want to feel adored by someone.
Yeah.
And if you are loved and adored because you've got your perfect figure and because you've got your perfect job, you're not actually loved and adored.
It's not because of that. It's not. I don't think that I would be loved and adored because I've got those things. But I think that helps to kind of get the ball rolling. I do. I mean, I think that's just life. That's human beings, isn't it?
I think it plays a role, but I think it doesn't play as much of a role as people often think it does. Because I think what people are truly attracted to is not necessarily, yes, the packaging is part of it, but what people are really attracted to is how someone makes them feel.
Yeah.
And the way to make someone feel good is to feel good.
Yeah.
The better your relationship is with yourself, the more loving you are of yourself, the more easy you are with yourself, the more you find joy in the simple things in your life, the more people will want to be around you.
And I do know that. I mean, I have evidence of that. Not necessarily from a romantic point of view.
But just friendship, right?
But you know,
who are the people you enjoy spending time with?
Oh yeah, and I definitely see that. But I'm still very much up and down, so I'm not consistently feeling good. And that's, for me.
But you're starting to feel, if we look at the last, I guess it's sort of 8 months or so that we've been working together, the things that I observe are there's more stability.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there aren't ups and downs, but there is more stability.
Definitely.
There is much more self-awareness when things go off the rails, and you get them back on track much more quickly.
Yeah.
There is more recognition and insight into what you want and what you need to do to get there. For example, when I asked you the question, you have had a much more immediate and a much more truthful answer than when I asked you that question 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know if you remember, we were doing a Zoom session. And
and I said I want to be running in the fields with chickens and dogs and.
Yeah. So, you got much more quickly this time to what you really want.
Yeah.
That's an image that will make you feel certain ways. But what you truly want is you want to be loved and you want to be adored.
Yeah, I do. And I want to have fun.
And by the way, Katie, so you should want that.
But again, I've got this kind of. But nobody would love and adore me because I don't deserve it. That's the voice.
And that comes back to the piece that we're working with.
Yeah.
Right? The more that you love and adore you, the more you become, like another way of putting it is, become the person that you need to be to attract into your life the person that you want. Most people, though, think that means I need to be a size whatever and I need to have this amount of status and this, and it's generally the wrong stuff.
Yeah, but it does help. You don't see beautiful people with ugly people. You don't see,
it's interesting. You do this job long enough and work with enough, I've worked over the years with, famous actresses and models and blah, 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 most of which have terrible relationship histories. Mm-hmm. Most of which have got multiple divorces under their belt or just in and out of one, just because people don't relate to them for their hearts. They've learned through their careers that they need to be this perfect, idealized self, and they're quite good at it. They're much better than you and I might be at that. But then people relate to that, not to them, and that's not real. So in time, the facade falls down, and then the relationship falls apart.
Yeah, no, I get all that. I just know
it's
that...
getting it, but it's one thing to get it as an idea. It's another thing to get it in your felt, lived experience. And I can't,
because the bottom line is I think I'm, a fat, ugly cow.
Well, I'm going to challenge that. Your inner critic keeps telling you that you're a fat, ugly cow. That's not actually the same thing. If you remember our last session together, and we were working with the emotions, and you found a place where you went through some of the sadness and some of the hurt, and you went to a place where you just felt a natural arising sense of joy, a very simple sense of just joy and connection to yourself.
And I have been connecting to that a lot more. That has helped in those situations that I explained earlier. And actually, I don't know if I went down to stay with my parents, and we had such a lovely weekend. It was really healing, and I got on really well with my parents, and I didn't feel triggered at all. And
well done.
There was no tension. But when we got back, Simon said to me, "Your behaviour, you just ignored me for the whole weekend. You didn't give me any attention whatsoever, and your behaviour was outrageous." And it really hurt me because I felt so happy that whole weekend. And and then I thought about it. I didn't react, and then I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? Every time we've ever been down to my parents before, as a couple or as a family, my parents have done nothing but just laud praise on Simon and say how wonderful he is and what a great cook and what have you been up with. Never really shown me any interest whatsoever. And they did this weekend, and he didn't like it. That's my interpretation of it.
I mean, again, I'm being a little direct today. Maybe it's the end of the week.
Well, I like direct.
But one of the things that I also see is in what you're saying about Simon is, what's he craving?
Oh, he is. He's craving
to be loved and adored.
Yeah, he is.
And we tend to end up in relationship with people that mirror our issues, right?
Yep.
You've got very different strategies of going about it, but what we've really got here is two people that are craving to be loved and adored.
And we've never been able to give it to each other.
Because you've never been able to give it to yourselves.
Yeah.
The truth is, we don't know how you're going to feel on the others. Not that it's necessarily a journey that has an endpoint to it, but further down this path, let's say, of you working on your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
That really is the key. And you're seeing, as you just spoke to, which I'm really pleased to hear, differences in your relationship with your parents. There's been a series now. It's funny, I was reviewing the episode of the session that we filmed on Zoom about 2 or 3 months ago. And you were talking about your relationship with your mum. And I said to you something like, trust is earned. And trust is earned by, it's not just any one experience, but if she said some things that felt very loving and very supportive, if there's a repeat of that over time, that builds that trust. And that has happened now over a series of interactions.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I fully trust her. But,
no, but and that isn't what I'm suggesting.
But even a situation where
there is a growing sense of
we can have
trust.
A weekend where it doesn't feel tense, or it doesn't feel there's an agenda, or it doesn't feel that we had a nice time. I wouldn't say I fully, the relationship is completely mended. I mean, one thing my dad did say, because they know that I've been doing a lot of work on myself, and I was explaining about, some of the beliefs that I've been trying to address, and this self-esteem thing, and he was saying, and I was saying it, a lot of it comes from childhood, and I was talking about my childhood and his. So we're saying the interesting thing that I've discovered is that you and I are very similar, that you don't have any belief in yourself, and you've almost sort of given, and that was projected onto me as a child, and and I think to a certain extent I've probably done it to my kids, and I said, when you used to say to me, if I came home with 9 out of 10 in a test, and you'd say to me, well, what happened to the 1 mark? It didn't help me much, and he said, and we did, but we said it in a very loving. It was a conversation. It wasn't
an accusation.
Not at all. Yeah. And he said, but you don't know how guilty I feel about having been like that with you.
Wow, that's something, huh?
It's the first time ever.
Amazing. How did that feel?
I was like, I think I was a bit kind of, because I have to be very guarded with my parents, with my emotions, because I can really be triggered and hurt very easily.
And that's appropriate.
Yeah, I just said, well, that's guilt that you have to deal with. I said, there's no reason to feel guilty. That's what I said, but you have to deal with that guilt. And then it was only afterwards that I thought, shit. I mean, there's only like 2 or 3 times in my whole life that I've heard him be that vulnerable.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, another time we were doing some personality test, and I can't remember, we were discussing the score, and I said, why'd you say that? And he goes, well, I'm not very easy to live with, am I? And that was the only other time where we've had these like tiny little glimpses of a connection.
How does it feel to just let that metabolize a little bit? To name that actually your dad really does love you, and your dad does feel some regret of some of those things that they caused real difficulty for you, but that wasn't his ultimate intention.
Well, there's, I feel a great sadness a lot of the time at the moment because there's so much time has been wasted with these, crazy family feuds and just not being able to connect on a level that I've always craved, that I've always known that I could connect on, but nobody else seemed to be able to. And I wish I'd known that I didn't have to react like I did all those years to get what I wanted. And actually my mum used to say to me when I was a kid, and I was so hysterical and histrionic and attention seeking, basically. She used to say,
trying to be loved and adored.
She used to say, the one thing you want, Katie, you make sure you never get because of the way you behave. It wasn't the nicest way of, for her, but she'd say...
there was some truth in that.
There was, and I think back to that now, and I wonder if my kids will think back to some of the things that I say.
But, also the other side of it is that you get put in an impossible position, because what you get told is, unless you are perfect, you're a failure. 9 out of 10 is not, 9.5 out of 10 is not good enough, and... I had the same messaging as a child.
Yeah.
I had a very strong grandmother who did a lot of the parenting because my mum was working 3 jobs and my father wasn't around. And I was pretty bright at school, but I wasn't like one of those kids everything came too easily.
Yeah.
Same thing. If I got 9 out of 10, what did you get wrong? If I came second in the class, who was top and how are you going to be top next time?
Yeah.
And it took me years to really unpack it and really make sense of it. But at the time, it's very, you feel something is wrong, and you feel the unjustness and the anger that something's wrong, but you have no capacity to fix that.
And for me, it made me just think, fuck it.
Right.
Then I'll just come last then.
Right.
And I did, and I was in a school where, achievement was the be all and end all. It didn't matter how you felt, as long as you achieved. And I just thought, fuck the lot of you, I'll just come last. And I did. I used to be proud of coming 30th out of 31 in the class.
Right.
And how come I didn't? And I would behave like that, and I would say, oh, damn, why didn't I come 31st?
Right.
It wasn't how I felt at all. And I would really misbehave in school.
But ultimately, you were driven by the fact that you wanted to be seen and you wanted to be loved and adored.
And that way I could.
Right. And even if it's negative attention, because attention for acting out or getting in trouble, at least you're being seen.
And that's what makes me sad.
Right.
Because there were so many missed opportunities. I was asked to join the netball team at school, and I've thought a lot about this, and I was like, you must be joking. I'm not joining the netball team, and I wouldn't do anything because I was too cool.
Right.
Because I was too naughty, because I was too wild, because, and actually, it didn't do me any favours whatsoever. And even when, the best looking boy in the grammar school did ask me out, which was my kind of aim, I couldn't ever make a go of that because I was too fucking terrified of being myself.
Right, and that's the trouble when you get so used to being the rebel or the one that doesn't give a shit. They're all fake selves.
Yeah.
They're all idealized selves. If I'm that or I'm that, and then we become completely unsure of who we are, but also we lack that strength of being proud of this is me. Love it or leave it, but there's a constant stress and efforting that goes into everything.
And I'm still not there. I still have some of those layers that I have to strip away.
But there's more awareness.
Yeah.
There's more stability, and the meditation that you've been doing is a really big part of coming out of, because all of this kind of idealized self and conditioned self and all of this takes energy and it takes momentum, and the more you calm and settle things, the less you're gripping onto that, and the more you're able to relax into who you are that isn't all of that.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why the meditation is not just about calming your system, it's about loosening your grip. It's almost like it acts like a lubricant on your personality, that we get so stuck in everything that the more we learn to let go, the more we can slide out of those patterns and land more into who we are.
And it's probably a lifelong process.
What do you need from you over the coming few weeks? How we're not talking about anything radically new because we're already on a path which ultimately there's a lot of good that's happening.
Yeah.
But how do you support you in the coming few weeks?
I really need some time.
Right.
Time is like so scarce for me at the moment. And when I feel like I do at the moment, I can find that time. But when I don't, I'm spending all my energy on just trying to get through the day.
Yeah. So you need some time and you need some rest.
Yeah.
And not just physical rest, you also need emotional rest.
Yeah.
How are you going to get that?
Well, we've just booked a holiday, so...
Where are you going?
Corfu.
Nice.
If we ever get there. But I know once I get there, I can just...
Yeah, okay, good.
So,
good.
and that's why I like my holidays.
And in the meantime, make sure you keep going with your meditation.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep going with your self-care and you're being gentle with yourself.
And I'm going to bed earlier,
Good.
which is a big thing.
Good. Do you have any questions for today?
No, I don't think I do. No, just thank you for...
No, you're welcome.
I find this very, very useful. So
Good, I'm glad.
you seem to get me, which is about the only person who ever has in my life.
one tries. Good. Well, Katie, it's been lovely to see you. Have a great holiday in the meantime, and I will see you early September.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of In Therapy. The relationship we have with ourselves really is the most important relationship in our lives. It's also often the most difficult relationship in our lives. But how we connect to ourselves, being loving, supportive, being the best advocate for ourselves, also shapes all of the other relationships in our lives, because we teach people how to treat us. And if we're treating ourselves in a way which is unkind and derogatory or unboundaried and letting other people push us around, it just encourages more of that. Investing in being there for ourselves, showing up to ourselves is so, so important. So how do you cultivate a more positive, a more supportive relationship with yourself? Well, here's my top tip. You've got to spend time with yourself. Often when the relationship we have with ourselves is difficult, the last place we want to be is with ourselves. So we're always avoiding, distracting, busying, off doing this, off doing that, doing almost anything we can to avoid slowing down and connecting. Because often when we do, initially, it doesn't always feel good. What we feel is the pain of the disconnection and all the emotions that we've not been paying attention to. But by giving those more space, giving those some time, that all starts to calm, it starts to settle, we start to feel much better with ourselves. And that very investment of time, of listening, of being with ourselves is in of itself healing. It's telling our hearts, it's telling our little children, the little us that lives inside of us, that we matter enough to spend time with. So my invitation to you is to spend some time being close, being intimate, being there with yourself. In next week's episode, we're going to be meeting a new participant in Therapy. We're going to be meeting Al. Al is joining the series because he wants to work on health anxiety and just finding more joy in his life. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week.
Well, Al, it's lovely to meet you. What are you hoping to get from the time we've got together?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, I was out 3 nights in a row.
Wow.
I'm definitely giving myself cancer. I'm going to die.
There's a reality of what happens in your body, and then there's a kind of catastrophization of what happens.
Yeah. A doctor and no one else can tell you that there's never going to be something real.